Once I was told who the foster mom was, it was the same lady whose post I was tagged in on Facebook that I gave all of that stuff to. I had given her Rowan's things to take care of my own child without even knowing that she was going to be the foster mom for her, before I even know that Rowan was going into foster care. My name is Kaylee Edwards. I am a married mother. I have 2 kids. I've got my daughter Rowan, who's now 3, and my son Reese, who's about to turn 2. We woke up, we had a big day planned. She was 6 weeks old, and we were finally ready to kind of breach taking her out and meeting people and introducing her and things like that. We had woke up with Rowan, I want to say like 11:30, 12 a.m. I went upstairs to make a bottle, and Lennon got her up, changed her diaper. He noticed this knot on her collarbone. She wasn't crying, it wasn't red. He didn't think it felt normal. So I texted my mom. She was like, bring her up here, I'll check her out. And so my mom looked at her, and she was like, well, she's not hurting, she's not crying, there's no fever, no redness, no pain, no swelling. We got her checked in, and we waited from like 1 a.m. to about 3 a.m. to get put in a room in the ER. They go and look at the imaging, and it was ER doctor. We hadn't seen the ER doctor yet. And she walked in and she looked at us and she said, what have you done to this baby? No context. We both just stopped. I was like, what do you mean? And she said, do you understand what has to happen for a child to sustain injuries of this severity? What injuries? And all she says is, I've contacted CPS, you can't leave, you need to stay right here. And she walks out. And me and Lennon are just distraught. I'm panicking, his adrenaline is rushing. I think what was going through my mind at the time was just anger and pure hurt. I was just in panic. Like, why would you ever on this earth accuse somebody of something like this? Especially me. We come here for help. The ER doctor had come back in and she said, we're admitting you into the hospital, you can't leave. The next step was we were met by a doctor on the floor, a couple nurses, and a social worker. And the social worker said, I'm solely here just to talk to you guys to kind of see what's going on and provide a safety plan. In my mind, I'm thinking she's going to get all the answers. It's going to be fine. Rowan's going to come home. She was like, who are you? What is your relation to Rowan? Do you know anybody who would have heard? And I'm just in pure shock. So I answered her questions and I was very angry about it. And I was playing on my phone, and there was a Facebook post that was made, and somebody had posted, in need of 0 to 3 month little girl clothes, blankets, anything for a new incoming foster. I was tagged in the post. And so I commented and I said, absolutely, we have an abundance of things. We overbought for Rowan being the first kid. And I told her, I was like, when we get out of the hospital and get home, message me, we'll meet up and I'll give you whatever you need. About that time, there was a child pediatrician that come into the room, and she introduced herself. Is there a way that I could talk to you and Landon separately? She was very straightforward, like, let's go talk right now. She said, do you feel safe at home? Yeah, I feel safe at home. What do you mean? I live with my parents and my husband. Do you and your husband ever argue, or are you financially stable? Do you work? I answered every question wholeheartedly. I live with my parents and my husband. Well, when Landon comes back from his interview with her, he was like, why are you so upset? She's so nice. I was like, what do you mean? And he said, she just asked me, like, if we have the resources we need to get through, and, how I like living with my in-laws. I said, she didn't ask you if you felt safe at home? And he said, no. So at that point, we knew I was the target. And a social worker comes back in, the same social worker from that morning, and she says, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Doss, it's me again. I just wanted to let you know we're putting you under a safety plan. You are permitted to stay the night, but you have to keep, the windows and the blinds open in the room so we can see you and Rowan at all times. You can't shut the bathroom door. You can't leave the room. You have to be in here unless, you talk to somebody else and they pretty much guide you out to wherever you need to go. And it's about 8:30 in the morning, and that same child pediatrician walks into the room. It was Cynthia again. She comes in and she lays it all out there. Rowan has sustained, I think she mentioned, like 8 to 13 different fractures, like 8 rib fractures. She had a metaphyseal long bone fracture, which is considered a bucket handle fracture in her leg. She had an ankle fracture and a subdural hematoma on her brain, and a healed collarbone fracture. I had no words. I literally just started squalling. And she's like, do you understand the amount of force and pressure it takes to sustain these kinds of injuries? And we're looking at her like, are you crazy right now? Like, have you lost your ever-loving mind? And so my mom's interjecting, I'm interjecting, and we're like, what about, bone disease? What about osteogenesis imperfecta? What about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome? And so we're listing it all off, and she's like, nope, I have made my opinion. I've made my diagnosis. This is what it is. She's going into foster care today. All day, I'm in tears. I can't focus. I can't shower. I can't eat. 2 social workers walk into our room and they're like, hey, can we go to the conference room and talk to you guys? All I remember is we're putting her into foster care. The only person I can think of is my Nana, because they wouldn't let Rowan be with my parents because we live with them. And I sat there in that room and I called her in front of them and I said, you know, hey Nana, I need you to come to the hospital. And she said, I'm already here. She said, your mom's already called me and I'm already here. And so I sat on the edge of that bed and I fed her this bottle and I just looked at her. And these social workers are like, you've got 5 minutes. You've got 4 minutes. Your time is ticking. You better get yours and get out. And they walked over and they took her, like they picked her up, set her bottle down and pushed us out of that room. They laid her down in that bassinet and they walked out with us. There was no safety tag on her ankle. That door was not shut. That door was not locked. My child in that room on the floor by herself. And now I'm walking to an elevator with a diaper bag, an empty car seat, and my husband and my mom. And we're all panicking because we didn't think it was actually going to happen. DSS was 45 minutes away. So we went to DSS and met with the investigator. And the words out of her mouth made me the maddest I think anything else had. And she said, you know, it's just funny because she doesn't look like she's been abused. Like, I hate to be so blunt honest. And I looked at her and I said, you're being ignorant. She had given us this paperwork with our court-appointed attorneys on them, and she told us to contact them. And she gave us our first court date. She gave us the okay for my Nana to stay with Rowan in the hospital. And that's pretty much all that was. We left that meeting with paperwork, and my Nana come to the house. She packed Rowan a diaper bag and went back up to the hospital because she was allowed to stay with her. We started researching. I've got notebooks full of notes and facts and findings and the allegations and potential illnesses that could have mimicked child abuse. So when we were at home researching everything, Rowan was left in the hospital that first night. She stayed with my Nana that night into Tuesday during the day. My Nana called us and she actually FaceTimed us with Rowan in the room. And she was like, hey, she's doing okay. She's wonderful. She's smiling. After that, Nana's like, I'm going to put her down for a nap and I'm going to grab me something to eat. We got off the phone and Nana went to grab her a cup of coffee and grabbed a bite to eat. And she come back and Rowan was gone. Like, Rowan was not in that room. They sent her home with a foster parent. I'm so sorry. I don't know what else to do. We called the social worker investigator. She said, oh, yeah, you know, she's with the foster mom. She's okay. You know, she has what she needs. And I said, do you know what formula she uses? Because, you know, she's got a sensitive stomach. She uses a specific formula. Oh, well, that wasn't noted. What does she use? I said, you know, is she getting the care that she needs when it comes to all these other little things that we do for her at home? And she's like, no. I said, are you giving her prune juice because she's constipated, because she has GI problems? Well, that wasn't noted in her records either. Exactly. You don't know my child. I never heard from her again. I never got a phone number for her, nothing. We met with a private attorney, and that was just by the grace of God, because we called before and he was booked, didn't have anything, so he represented the both of us together, which was rare. That normally doesn't happen. He said fighting DSS and fighting family court systems can take upwards of 2 to 3 years. It's hard and it's miserable. He said, you need to tell me right now, did you hurt that baby? Absolutely not. And he said, all right then you're fine. And then you had us in there dressed, clean, shaved, like ready to go to court, thinking it was a big deal and we were going to make changes. And they called roll. And, you know, they called out like Kaylee Edwards. They were expecting me to say my court-appointed attorney's name, and I didn't. I said Evans, and everybody just stopped. And then when they called out Landon's name, he said Evans, and it really got quiet. Because when they call roll, they say, answer, let us know who your attorney's going to be. That's how they, you know, tell your attendance. And we're like, oh, that was weird. Like, did we say something wrong? We had met our social worker, and they go to judge's chambers, and they discuss something, and you can hear Corinne yelling. That man fought tooth and nail for everything for us, and we got it every time. Walked out. We left court right after that. He met with us outside, and he said, this is a win. Let's keep them coming. You need to go get all of your medical records for yourself and Rowan. Go ahead and start parenting classes. Go ahead and start therapy. Do all of it, because they're going to ask for it. And if you get the ball rolling and go ahead and start, there's no stopping. He said, you go see that baby as much as you can. You take pictures every time you're together. You write down everything you do when you're together. He said, a social worker calls you. You answer the phone immediately. You drop everything that you're doing. Pretty much be at their beck and call. If they say jump, you say how high. So the guardian ad litem had come to my Nana's house, I think that day or the very next day, to visit with us and like meet Rowan and meet us and kind of get feel for like whatever was going on and what we think had happened if we had questions. We knew everybody in the county, so it was really hard to find somebody we didn't know. And there was no changes in our case from June of 2022 until like November of 2022. Every single court appearance was a continuation. Every court appearance was, well, no changes, no evidence. I wasn't supposed to be told who the foster mom was, but once I was told who the foster mom was, it was the same lady whose post I was tagging on Facebook that I gave all of that stuff to. I had given her Rowan's things to take care of my own child without even knowing that she was going to be the foster mom for her, before I even know that Rowan was going into foster care. And it clicked. This system is screwed up. Like, this is terrible. And so I'm sitting there with Rowan for the very first time in a week, getting to hold her and play with her and kiss her sweet little face, and I don't think I let her go. So after the initial court appointment, I think we had maybe upwards of 12 court appearances. So we had started, little things, like we made sure we did visits every single day with Ro. We took pictures, we documented everything. Every home visit with the social worker was they said, can we? And we said, absolutely, show up whatever time you want to, just let us know, we'll be there. We didn't miss anything. The biggest thing between June to November was doctor's appointments. So Rowan was seen again by a child pediatrician after 2 weeks of the initial diagnosis to get like a follow-up. And at the follow-up, she found more fractures. It went from being like 12 or 13 to like 18 fractures. We went to a secondary bone specialist, orthopedic specialist, to try to get a second opinion on the x-rays. And he didn't necessarily disagree with the first doctor's findings, but he didn't necessarily agree with them either. He just didn't really want to put his foot in the water and get involved because he didn't want his license to be on the line. When we seen the endocrinologist, she was amazing. The very first thing that she had said to us was, this sounds like it could be like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. She said, does Rowan pop every time you pick her up or anytime she moves? She really went in depth with her medical records and listened to everything that we had ever said. And I said yes to all of it. She's constantly popping. She's constantly cracking. And she said, this sounds just like, like a metabolic bone disease and EDS. We need to explore that out. You need to have genetics done. She needs to go to physical therapy. I was like, we have answers. Somebody listened to us and we have answers. This woman she moved here from like Arizona, Arkansas. It was one of the A states. We never seen her again after that appointment. She had moved here recently and we seen her for the first time and it was amazing. And DSS found out about the appointment and found out that she kind of gave us like a potential answer, and they canceled our future appointments with her. Said that we couldn't see her because she wasn't like in our network. If we got an answer that Rowan was actually sick, that she did have a diagnosis and there was like a potential issue, that's money lost on their part, because Rowan brought in a significant amount of money and funding to the department every month that she was in their care. And if she's truthfully sick, well, now they've got to pay for the resources and the therapies and the ongoing doctor's appointments. And so instead of pocketing everything that they make off of her, now they're having to split it to pay for the things that she needs to keep her healthy, rather than just saying that she is healthy. They tried to push it off as far as they could. We finally got the genetics done after an order from our pediatrician, and the geneticist was the rudest human being I've ever met in my life. In November of 2022, we went into court for what they call an adjudication hearing. An adjudication hearing means that they're either going to say, we're going to give you a reunification plan, or we are going to give you like a TPR, which is like a termination of parental rights. Well, at this adjudication hearing, we had brought our entire community into that courtroom with us, and it was astounding. The judge had never seen anything like this before. She said typically these kinds of cases do not have community backing. You don't have any kind of support. Like, if it's abuse, and nobody wants to support a child abuse. We had our pastor and his wife, several members of our church, my parents, grandparents, Landon's dad and his nana. We had several friends, co-workers, bosses. We even had a county commissioner. When the judge asked if anybody would like to stand up and like share on our behalf, everybody stood. And that really set a tone with the judge. Well, it wasn't until 2 days before that I had learned that the foster parent that kept Rowan, I knew who she was. I didn't know that she worked for the hospital where Rowan was. And when I learned that information, I kept it in my back pocket. And so when I was called on stand to testify, and I was asked questions from both sides, you deny that you caused those fractures. Yeah, I denied them. Well, then when Corinne started asking questions, he asked us one question. He said, were you aware that the foster parent that took Rowan home that night at the hospital was on shift, and when she got off shift was supplied a car seat from the department and took her home? I didn't know that. I was like, I didn't know that she took her home after her shift. Like, the fact that you work there should be a red flag. And that you just scooped her up and took her home is a whole nother ordeal. You know, there's a blank and they're like, you know, is there anything that you would like to say to the court? I remember saying that it is not appropriate that myself, my child, or my husband are being treated anything less than human. People breed dogs and allow their dog to keep their puppies for 8 weeks, if not more, because that mother-child connection is so important, and to have that kind of bond is so important. But you can rip my child away from me for no reason at the drop of a hat just because you want to. I said it should be illegal, the fact that you let a foster parent that I personally know take my child home from the hospital. You know, I just kept going. This foster parent filed to adopt my baby, and now she can't. You've lost. We piled in and went to Boston. We drove. It was myself, my Nana, my mom. When we got there, he really went in depth with all of our medical records, including my mom. He looked at my dad and looked at my Nana, but neither one of them passed any of the criteria. But he looked at my medical records from like birth to now, or birth to then, at 21, and looked at my mom's. He's like, there's no doubt. He was like, genetically speaking, there's like a 75% chance that Rowan has it. But look at her. He was like, she has it. He was like, you know, give me 3 to 4 weeks, I'll have you an expert report and I'll email it to you. I was like, it has been 7 months and I can finally breathe. I get home and I get with Lane and we go straight to Corinne's office and we're like, we have a diagnosis for Rowan and myself. We have EDS. He sits right there in front of us and calls the DA and he's like, drop your charges. We have a diagnosis. They had charges pending against me and I had no idea. And an email come through sitting in service and it was the expert report coming from him. And I sat there and I squalled. The things that this doctor can connect and the dots that he put together and all of the hard facts and evidence, like if this is not enough to get my baby home, these people are truthfully evil. But we would go to court and they'd be like, well, we need evidence to like change something. Or like, overall it took 18 months to get her home. A whole 550 days for Rowan to come back. One of the very last court appearances we had, Miss Chris came with a folder of notes, ready to just absolutely destroy DSS with them. And we had planned on Dr. Hollick testifying in court also for us. And the day before court, DSS contacted Corinne and said that his testimony wasn't necessary, that they were just going to send Rowan home. But we got there and that wasn't the case. They just couldn't get a specialist there to testify against him. And so they didn't want his testimony in court, not theirs. We were sitting there and the judge had made the comment that it's time for home trial. And home trial is when they send the child home with their parents to live there like normal. We ended up going to court again in November and the judge says, oh, how's home trial going? Our attorney's like, they're not receiving home trial. And our judge was absolutely infuriated. And so the social worker's attorney, you know, pipes up and he's like, well, you know, it's at the department's discrepancy and the social workers didn't. And the judge interrupts and she says, no, I ordered home trial. The child needs to go home at some point. And I was ecstatic. I was like, yes, we're getting home trial. She's coming home. The judge literally says, your very next appearance is return of rights. So make it through home trial. As soon as the judge said congratulations, like, you know, your rights have been returned immediately, I squalled. Landon cried. I cried. I'm pretty sure our attorney almost cried. Like, he was happy for us. Of course, my parents and my grandparents were over the moon. Rowan was at the court appearance with us. Like, she was sitting in court with us. And so we go home and it's just life like normal. I told my mom, I said, I can breathe. There's no eyeballs on me. There's no checkups. There's no having to worry about going to Walmart. We couldn't even go to Walmart with her before. Yeah, right now, we're just ecstatic. Like, we live every day and, you know, we're always busy. Having 2 toddlers is insanely busy and crazy all the time, but I wouldn't change it. Like, the personalities and the little just joyous things that they love and do and just make us a whole family. It's just so nice. Like, the whole time we were in our case, all I asked for was Christmas. Every year was, I just want Christmas. I just want a birthday. I just want to sleep in bed with my kids. And now that I have it, you really take in the little things and you don't worry so much about the big things. It's not about like what you buy or what you have. It's just, as long as you have your kids, you're okay. Having them's enough that we have a rich life